exactly.
Well, awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming back on. I really appreciate it. I was thinking when we talked the first time, I was looking back through my notes. I realized we talked about like CrossFit and your story, but we really didn't get into much of like your businesses that you're a part of. So I was like, it'll be fun to have you back on and really dive deeper into that so everyone can learn more about what you're doing. And I think
Yeah.
there's a whole different side of just like a lot of folks that are in the CrossFit world, like how they're turning things into businesses post competing, I think is really
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And there's a lot of news this week, obviously, that came out that I think maybe you've seen, but yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking for today, kind of down that avenue, if that sounds good to you.
Yeah, I definitely pay a lot of attention to it, and I'm certainly not the first one to kind of go down that route, but earlier on, I left the sport almost 5 years ago now,
Isn't that
so
crazy?
yeah, yeah, it's really crazy. Um, and so yeah, I've just been just trying to make a business from. I mean, I've been involved in businesses ever since I started competing, which was in 2010. I mean, I owned gyms, and then I started doing remote coaching early on. So I was kind of doing different things. But once CrossFit as a sport and as an athlete was sort of not there, then it was like, it was a distraction in many ways.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it at the time, but then it was like once it was gone, I was like, oh, I got to really focus on making this business part of it work.
Right. Do you
Yeah,
mind giving everyone maybe a little background into like when you say business part? I know a lot of it, but obviously Revival Strength what I would think is the main component. But would you mind
hmm
giving everyone just kind of a download of like what the businesses around what you're doing online, what those are
sure.
called, and what they are?
Yes. Um, well, I mean, I guess to start, it's like how did I define myself when I first started this was as a fitness professional. I was going to be, and I don't know, maybe that, okay, I could just say I'm a coach or a trainer. I don't know. I don't mean to like use some fancy terminology to make what I do sound more, you know, different than it actually is. But
But you went
um,
to we talked about this last time. You went to school for that too, right?
I went to school.
Kind
I
of.
went to medical school, so
Yeah. Right. Right.
I was going to go traditional medicine,
Medicine. Yeah.
and then that didn't pan out the way I anticipated it, and I wanted
Right.
to get into health and fitness, um, and I really just wanted to coach people, and so that's what I started to do. But I say that that's how I defined myself when I first started out, because I didn't start out with like the CrossFit sport thing. I wasn't like athlete from one sport, transition to CrossFit, try and make a name for, try and make it as a CrossFitter.
Right.
Um, that was secondary. So, but and welcomed detour for sure. It was personally fulfilling, and professionally, it was a very, in hindsight, a good move for
Yeah.
me, I suppose. Um, but yeah, I was a gym owner, so that was a business. Was like run a successful micro gym. Then there was,
What does that mean for people who, I mean, even where I think we told you this last time, where I grew up, like an LA Fitness or like Bally's was like the only like real gyms in
mhm.
town. So at that time, what was a micro gym like?
I mean, a micro gym was sort of the CrossFit gym, like a boutique gym where you probably had less than 150 people, maybe 200 people. Um, you're selling memberships at a higher, at a premium, because Bally's or LA Fitness, they're going to make uh, tr- uh, the vast majority of their revenue on lower price point memberships, and then bank on the fact that most people aren't going to come, right?
Yeah.
So you're
Right.
going to get a low use per person versus a micro gym where it's like, hey, you got 150 people, they're paying $300 or $200 a month. If they stop using it, they're going to cancel, right?
Sure. Oh yeah.
Versus the person who's paying $9.99 a month, they'll keep that membership forever because they don't want to lose that rate. It doesn't matter if they haven't gone for a year. It's like, whatever. It's, $10 a month. I'm going to keep
Yeah.
the membership in case, because I'm going to start up someday. Right.
Yeah.
So
Right. Right.
it's a bit
That's
of a
funny.
different model. And then, in the micro gym, you're just a lot more there's a lot more transparency almost, because like the owner was oftentimes one of the head coaches, was oftentimes the person that was actually directly connected to the members. So, it wasn't like you've got like a sales team and then you've got like the executive team and you've got uh, the accounting firm. And no, it was
Yeah.
like, I'm the guy and I do it all. And you're just getting to meet me. And um, so that was kind of the micro gym mentality. And
So you
it
had to
started
run
out
the
as,
business and train people. You had to do
yeah,
all of it.
which
Yeah.
which was so problematic because so many people just didn't know what they were doing running businesses. They were good coaches or good trainers or passionate fitness professionals that lacked all of the knowledge to do the other stuff. And that's
Sure.
why a lot of micro gyms fail. And that's why now, 10 to 15 years later, people are like getting wise to the fact that like, oh, you you can't just be a good coach and go start a business. Like
They're like two
you have to
different
know.
things.
Totally. Yeah. So that was like the first thing. And then with in sort of the mid 2010s, like around 2014, 15, because social media was growing, but also like just online brand presence was a little bit more easy to establish. And I had established a bit of it as a CrossFit athlete, but also as a CrossFit coach or a fitness coach.
Okay.
I was getting inquiries to like be someone's coach. Like, hey, would you coach me? I'm from Australia. And
Oh,
this was
wow.
sort of just starting. Like I had been getting coached remotely by a professional out of Arizona for several years in my CrossFit career.
Oh, you
So I
personally
knew
had
that
a remote coach.
I had a
Yeah.
coach. Yeah. So I knew that the model was there, but it was not a big thing, right? Especially in the CrossFit community. People were still going to gyms.
Right.
They were maybe following an online training blog, but they were definitely just hanging out at gyms and getting coached in person. So I started to coach people remotely. So over the course of like 2013, 14, 15, I developed a remote coaching business without really knowing I was doing it. I had
And
30,
early
40
on,
clients.
like for someone who doesn't know anything about that world, I mean, are you just like emailing someone
Yeah.
back and forth and like getting a Venmo or something? I mean, back then, I don't even know if
Yeah,
Venmo was
pretty
very
much.
popular. Like, how were you even
Yeah,
getting
no,
paid?
it was like writing emails, sending spreadsheets with workouts, um, having them email back results,
Oh, wow.
and PayPal. That
Yeah.
was it.
Okay. PayPal. Yeah. Duh. Okay. Got it.
And then
And at that time, early
and
on, like,
some of them what I had done was like similar to what I was doing for my coach was I set up a training blog. So a blog where I
yeah.
like a WordPress blog where I would upload training videos and like sort of it was like my training journal online so that coach could look at it. So some of my clients were doing the same thing, right?
Okay.
You just start to think about how inefficient this whole thing is. It's like I'm sending emails, I've got spreadsheets in Google, I got a blog that I have to go check over here, then I'm doing PayPal over here, right? It was just
Right.
ripe for somebody to come in from the tech side and just like, centralize everything,
Yeah.
which was the birth of a company called True Coach, which is now
Oh,
a very, very successful software company that sold like this last year for bunch of money to a bigger company, blah, blah, blah. But it was like we were doing this in 2014. We had the problem that they came and solved.
yeah. Well, I can only
Um,
imagine, right? I mean, you're trying to train, you're trying to run a gym, and then you probably have emails coming in all hours of the day, trying to figure out, wait, has
oh
someone
yeah,
paid
I
me?
worked 7 days a week. I mean, this
Yeah.
was like when me and my now wife were like early on in our dating life, and I remember Sundays, I would just be programming,
Yeah.
workouts and sending emails, and we were just like we didn't have a Sunday. We weren't doing stuff on a Sunday. It was like
Yeah.
that was brutal.
And early on, since you had some sort of a following, I mean, did that become pretty lucrative? Like, could you see the light at the down the tunnel that like that could be a career in itself?
Yeah, I mean,
Or is it like,
it was actually pretty I didn't well, I saw my coach was making it a career for himself and
mhm,
for some of the people that worked with him. So I saw a model of it, but I was still running the gym. So
sure.
I was putting in hours at the gym. So I was getting paid hourly for coaching classes. Like I paid myself. I had business partners, so we came up with something that made sense where it's like we're getting compensated for our time on the floor,
Sure.
right?
Okay.
And then I was making some profits off the gym because the gym was profitable, and
Okay.
so we were doing like a owner draw every month,
Right.
and then on top of that, I had this like extra income from remote clients that was coming in.
Right.
So I was like, oh, I have these like 3 income streams. Like this is great. Like
Right.
it was all kind of a bonus. And I was earning beyond my needs. So I was like, oh, this is fine. Like I'm just saving money and I can still train. I can still train a considerable amount for CrossFit. And I wasn't getting any money really from CrossFit competition.
Well, that's what I was.
Um,
Yeah, that was gonna be my next
there
question.
was
Was
some prize money,
yeah.
like if I would do well at regionals,
Okay.
but it was very
It
small.
wasn't
Like
something you could like plan
no,
your year around.
no, 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 no.
Yeah.
And there
Yeah.
was no sponsorship money that I was getting. I was getting sponsorship. I was getting gear from
Okay.
sponsorship. Oh, and I also had a supplement brand that I was running
That
at the
was a,
time.
it was funny. I got so many questions after our first episode about that. They're like, "Is he still doing that?" Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was
So
gonna ask you.
that was happening in like 2013, 2014. I had this small supplement company called Revive RX.
Yeah.
Um, which predated Revival Strength. So
Okay.
Revive RX was the original brand that had that Revive kind of naming to it.
You said
And
2013, 14.
yeah, and
I
so
remember.
I was just selling some supplements, like very small. I was doing it personally out of the gym. I was selling it
Okay.
like personally out of the gym. So I don't know, maybe I'd sell like $2,000 worth of or $1,500 worth of product a month to members, and there's a markup on it, so I'm making maybe $1,000 or something like that, and
Yeah.
which was sweet. I was like,
Oh
great.
yeah.
And then I found a couple gyms that wanted to like buy for their gym like locally, and so that grew a little bit, but it was not going to scale.
Okay.
And then my brother and my cousin were like, hey, we want to come in and we're going to take this and we're going to try and grow it. And that was when
Oh.
they kind of came in and sort of took over the supplement brand and helped to rebrand it, and help get us more exposure. And that's when we tried to make that like an actual business to go.
Got it. Okay. And what year was that? Because it's funny. I was in 2013, 2014. I would have been like my last 2 years of college, and for some reason, I remember that brand, and I don't know if I
Oh yeah.
actually am thinking I saw it somewhere, or if the name just rings a bell. But I definitely
Yeah.
remember that.
Well, they kind of came in 2015. And
Okay.
then I remember 2015 was the year that we actually had like a booth at the CrossFit Games. Um, and we had done rebranding, new packaging, a new look, new sourcing of product ingredients. We had worked with a great co-packer to upgrade our formulas, and that was the year we tried to we really kind of hit the CrossFit scene with sort of a new look. So that was 4 businesses. It was a gym, it was hourly personal training I was doing, it was remote coaching, and then it was the supplement. And then in 2016, I sold my shares of the gym to my
Okay.
partners. They bought me out. So I left the gym, and I was now going to focus solely on remote coaching. I was also going to focus solely on some personal training, so
Okay.
one-to-one individuals that I in my local area, and then the supplement brand was still there, and so that was it. Um, and I had like a 10-month non-compete clause in the buyout agreement, so I had 10 months before I could reopen a new gym. So I
Okay.
just trained individuals either out of their homes or in in basically the warehouse for Revive RX. The warehouse for Revive RX was my
That's kind
personal
of cool.
training space. Yeah, I had
Yeah.
like this, and this was 2016. A lot of people remember seeing it. Like I had this gym that had like all these like Costco racks,
Yeah.
like style,
Okay.
like,
Oh
pallet
yeah.
racks on the side with supplements on it. They're like, what's in the boxes? I was like, that's my supplement company. And I was training for the games in that
Oh, were you
training.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 2016 games. And I had a couple clients that I was able train for personal training in there.
Okay.
But outside of that, I couldn't open the doors and be like, hey, I'm an open gym. You can come. And, that was against my agreements.
So and at that point, were you just wanting to open your own gym? Was that kind of like what you saw as like the next phase in your career, is like you want to open your own
Yeah.
place and completely own it type of thing?
Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah. Like I leave this gym. At that point, like I had just spent 4 years building this gym, and the clients appreciated me. They liked me. I was a sought after coach. I don't want to get into like why I left, and
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
there was some drama around it a little bit. It wasn't like this perfect scenario.
Right.
So when I left, I think there were a lot of people that wanted to follow me. And so I didn't have a place for them to follow me to.
Ah, okay.
But it was the type of business that I knew. And I was like, okay, I got to get back to that, because that's what I know. And that's how I can, get back to being a successful entrepreneur, is if I reopen a gym, and I'll do it this way, and I'll improve upon it this way, and I'll get that core group of people back. And so I kind of had that in my mind, like I need to find my way back to that. I have 10 months to figure it out. It didn't really occur to me to be like, you know what, screw the gym model. I'm just going completely virtual. Like that wasn't there,
Okay.
and probably for a few years, it didn't really ever make sense to me to abandon the the actual brick and mortar um, model of business.
And is that because like was the most of the online coaching just kind of organic, like people reaching out to you, or were you kind of like
Yeah.
advertising or maybe didn't want to
Yeah,
be advertising
it
that?
was all organic. It was all like, oh, I've got some clients, great. I got some clients, great, And that was just for my own personal business. And then in 2017, this organic growth of virtual coaching was actually it proved to start to be scalable. I was like, I can't take on any more clients.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like, I'm getting too many people interested. And I had a coach that had worked with me for years at the gym. And once I left, she felt compelled to leave with me, or sort of leave that gym. And she was more aligned to what I was doing. And I started to feed her business.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, here's some remote clients,
Yeah.
and, I would bill them and pay her. And, she became my first coach,
Oh, okay.
essentially.
Oh, that's really how you got your first coach. That's cool.
Yeah. And so then, and again, that was still not from like advertising, marketing. Like there was no strategy there. It was just happening organically through social media.
And
And
back then,
then,
when you were doing like online coaching and in the gym, this is where I was curious too, is were you programming like CrossFit type movements, or were you doing like other, like what types of workouts were you selling and programming for
yeah,
people?
most of the online clients were all almost entirely, yeah, without exception, they all were coming to me because they were competitive CrossFit people.
Got it. Okay. Makes
So
sense.
I was programming competitive CrossFit stuff for them. You know, I wasn't getting somebody who didn't have a background in, functional fitness. They were
Yeah.
like, hey, I've been doing CrossFit for a couple of years. I want to compete in this. Can you give me the competitors training program? And that made sense because that's what I was doing.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. 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 Was there
And
any
then,
was there any like rub there? Just like you're competing on a world stage. Did you ever have any issues just like, I don't know, like giving out your competition, like your training plan type of thing, or did you not really
um,
think that way?
I never really thought that way. I mean, I think, you know what, if I'm like really honest, I think that I knew I was elite in the sport, and that I never got clients that I just saw as having more potential than I had in the sport.
Makes
So I
sense.
kind of always used myself as this like benchmark, and then worked backwards with my clients. Um, so that, like, for anybody that came to work with me, like if I would, I
Like it
don't
would have been
know.
strange if one of your like top competitors came to you and was like, "Hey, I want to buy your,
Well,
that
and
makes, I
down the
get that.
road, I started to get people that were of my, a similar caliber in terms of potential and, or at least success that they'd already had in the sport that wanted me to coach them. And that was something that while I was competing, I didn't feel like I could do.
Okay.
And then afterwards, once I stopped competing, I was like, okay, I could do this. But shortly thereafter, my interest started to go elsewhere in terms of like what my ideal client looked like. And I think that the reason was because once I was not in the like heart of competing, I didn't care to coach competitors anymore. I wanted
Oh,
to coach people that were experiencing what I was experiencing, which what we talked about last time, which was like this massive burnout from doing it for so long,
yeah. Yeah.
and wanting to find, well, what's a more sustainable way to do this type of training for a long time? Because I still like it. I just don't want to do it at like the competitive level anymore. And so yeah, 2017 started to get sort of an overflow of clients that I started to pass off to other coaches in my, you know, circle. So that one coach grew to two coaches, grew to three, grew to four. We have six coaches now. So that continued to grow.
Wow.
And then it became more than something just organic. Like we started to have like better systems for, you know, getting leads in and qualifying them and turning them into, Revival Strength clients. And so
Right.
Revival Strength became this name. I needed to name this new coaching business because I was no longer at the CrossFit gym anymore. I wasn't just Marcus Philly coaching,
Yeah. 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 You had
something
like this
bigger
whole
than
other
that.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, okay, now it's, what's the name? What do I want to call this coaching business? And Revive RX was a name that I put a lot of like, there was a lot of energy and thought that had gone into it. And I was like, okay, we'll call this Revival Strength. Um,
I like the name though.
and
Love the name.
yeah, yeah, thanks. Well, it was, what I realized at the time was like, you put a lot of energy and thought into like all the nuances of the name and how you want it to look. And, after time goes by, people just, they're not thinking about the significance of the name. It's just a name,
Yeah.
it's like you
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
have chosen anything.
I know. Isn't that
As long
funny?
as it's,
But you do
the idea
obsess
is like,
over it.
don't make it offensive and, just try and be as like neutral as possible. Although
Yeah.
revival, I
Right.
think has its own kind of connotations for people, but
What
they
is it?
don't
What
tend to
is it
be
really like?
negative.
What was like the heart of what it meant for you and like
Yeah.
with the
I
brand?
think the heart of what it meant was like, um, we're trying to like get back to our fundamentals as like, you know, human physical creatures. Like we're trying to revive a whole way of being,
Yeah.
uh, connected to our bodies,
Okay.
revive. And I think there's still some truth to that,
Yeah.
but,
Right.
as we talked about last time, like the thing that's now more brand presence is functional bodybuilding. That's the
Right.
methods that we use.
Yeah. You
So
guys really, in my opinion, coined that. I mean, it's
yeah,
been used a little
and
bit here and there, but like, I
sure,
mean,
yeah,
everyone I talk to, we think of what you guys are doing.
and that was 2017.
Yeah.
So that's brings us to the next business thing that happened, which was, okay, I started this coaching business. I'm doing personal coaching myself, plus I've got some coaches that are helping me. And we're going to do that virtually. We're going to eventually do it in person when I'm able to open up the brick and mortar again. We're going to build a model on this personal coaching.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's kind of two business lines. Revive RX, the supplement's still happening.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Although it's not mine anymore solely, it's, partners. I got my family involved in it. And then along comes this woman named Satya into my life, who's local. She's um, kind of gaining a lot of interest in fitness. She's going to one of the local CrossFit gyms, and she's like a marketer tech person by trade, email marketing, and was part of like the .com boom and did some early, was early in the uh, web development um, trade. and she's worked with clients to help them sell online courses, mostly like yoga type uh, fitness businesses.
Okay.
But she's into strength and conditioning, into CrossFit. She sees that I'm local. She's like, hey, pitched me an idea, like, hey, let's build a online training program. And I was kind of like, well, that's not really, I'm not really, it's not really my thing. Like, I'm
Yeah.
doing personal coaching.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, and she was persistent. She's like, well, let
And
me help you in
was
this
she
way.
saying like for just broad, like you'd sell like just a broad program and people could
Yeah.
buy?
Or
Yeah.
I don't think she was just trying to land me as a client. And she was like, I'll figure out some way to work together. But that was kind of
Got it.
like the idea. Right. And there were other games athletes that were selling their programming
Mm-hmm.
for like groups. It was like, what is Rich doing
Yeah.
was a training, program at the time. I think Ben Smith and maybe even Dan Bailey sold theirs.
That sounds right.
And I
Yeah.
kind of was like, I thought that's kind of what she was angling. I was like, that's not my thing, like I'm not really into that,
Yeah.
but I was, the organic stuff that was happening on social media was like I had said, like I had more people asking for what I was doing than I could service. So I was handing them off to coaches. And a lot of people were just like, what are the things you're doing on social media? You're like, you're showing these videos. Like, I want to try some of that training.
Sure. Yeah. Because
And they could,
it's like different and it definitely like catches your eye. You stop and watch like, what's this movement Marcus is doing?
sure.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah, maybe still to this day, that's true. And in 2017, for the audience that I had, who was
Mm-hmm.
used to seeing muscle ups and snatches and metcons, it was very different. It was
Yeah.
like, whoa. And it wasn't clickbait. I wasn't just trying to get people to stop. I'm like, this is what I do every day.
And
And people were like, whoa,
if I
that's
like
different.
pause too, like how did you go from 0 to 1? Because like I think that's one thing I've had a lot of questions on since our last episode was like he was competing in CrossFit. How did he all of a sudden switch and like come up with these different modalities and movements and different things to really get to this like functional bodybuilding type of
Sure.
programming? Was it
Yeah.
just like
Well, it was not like, it wasn't like I went from I'm doing this to like, let me just explore something new. It was more of a revival of what I used to do.
okay,
It was a return to something that I had stepped away from. So I had this strength and conditioning background before CrossFit that involved me doing programs from a really wide variety of different types of coaches out there. Some
okay,
of them were like some of the names I followed were Charles Poliquin, Paul Chek, and then a variety of different coaches that were publishing material on tnation.com.
okay.
Plus, I had collegiate strength and conditioning experience, and so if the combination of all those different methods was what built my foundation before I started CrossFit.
Got it.
CrossFit, I got into it. I was pretty good to just start with because I had a big training base from all those other, methods that I had done for years.
Mm-hmm.
Was good at CrossFit, but CrossFit essentially just made me like I got narrowly focused on that for years with the intent of improving maximal performance within the sport.
Yeah, right.
And I used some of the methods from my history to help me with that, but really became there's best practices to train for CrossFit sport, and that's what I did exclusively. And I always felt inside of me, at certainly at the peak of competition seasons and certainly the time period after competition seasons, I always felt like, man, this is brutally hard. And when I was feeling at my lowest, like aches and pains and burnout, I would always feel like I got to get back to some of that old way of training, slowing things down, bodybuilding, a bit more of a balanced approach to training.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, it just was there in my psyche to know like this is something I need to return to.
Got it.
And so
Okay.
when the time came, I also had a coach that was working with me at the time. And I mean, we both very much understood like the path to health and balance is not through competitive sport training. It's through doing other types of training that give the body the inputs and the adaptation, stimulus it needs to feel good.
Okay.
So that's what we got back to. And I have to say that period of time in early 2017 was one of the most exploratory and innovative times of my life, where I was just learning things in a way that was just like this accelerated curve. I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to reincorporate things that I used to do in the past with the knowledge I have and the base of fitness that I've built through CrossFit. Holy smokes, it's groundbreaking. And it was in that got people excited that were watching.
Right.
And so Satya, coming back to her, she pitches me, and I essentially pushed back a lot, but realized that she had a skill set that I needed, which was web development.
Okay.
I needed a website for my new company.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'll help you build that website, and we'll work on a project together in the meantime. And oh yeah, by the way, Marcus, I need to set up an email list for you because you don't have an email list. I was like, okay, fine. Whatever email list thing. Sure.
Yeah, sure.
And so she helps me nurture this email list that grows to, a few thousand people fairly quickly.
Wow. That's awesome.
And yeah, it was super. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, people are reading these emails.
Yeah.
And, then I had a website that was revivalstrength.com. Cool. I had a coaching page. Cool. I had a place for people to say, hey, I want coaching. Great. I had a place to put the bios of my two coaches. Great. So this is working out great. And then she starts to do this, we start to go through this process of, she's like, kind of say like, well, what is important about these training methods to you? Like, what would you want this training program, if we made one, to stand for? How would it be different? What do you want? Like, and so we kind of do this visioning, this vision board of like, well, what could a training program look like that represents what you're about, Marcus? And in the process of creating that, we write, weekly editorials, or every other week we write an editorial that captures some of this. We send it to the email list, which sort of kind of, she's doing her marketing thing, and I don't even realize what she's doing.
Okay. Yeah.
And then she's like, and then I start to write this program that I decide it's going to be a 12-week standalone one-time program that captures the essence of what I'm doing.
Okay.
For the masses. If people love it and they finish 12 weeks, great. Sign up for personal coaching with us. But here it is. And she's like, okay, well, we're going to launch it. We're going to have a 7-day registration period. People they can buy it. And then we close registration. Then we just over deliver and give them a great service for 12 weeks. I was like, cool. That sounds reasonable to me. Like, I'm not
at that time, not to cut you off, but at that time, was that kind of like, because I even to this day don't really know. I can't think of another one that's really like that. I feel like you guys.
Yeah, it was different. It was
different.
It was very different. It was not the typical approach. The typical approach was, here's my programming, sign up, and I'll just give you access to it. And it's just like kind of rolling out, ongoing.
Right.
And so she was like, no, we're going to do this launch. People are going to have a, restricted window to actually purchase it. And we're going to go from there.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. And that felt good to me, because I was like, look, I want this to be a way to showcase what we can do, but I don't want it to be like the end all be all.
Okay. And were so these people at this time, like, was there some crossover from your personal training, like online coaching, personal training, or these, like, where the emails come from?
The personal coaching side was, those people were pretty set, Yeah. This was sort of like to reach kind of a different audience, or for people that couldn't afford personal coaching or weren't ready to go that route.
Got it. So you use like social media to kind of like get some emails and kind of promote it that way.
Exactly.
Got it.
So the email list was growing. Then it was like, I just like posted a couple during that week, I posted on Instagram, like, hey, I've got this new training program. You've got 72 hours left to register. Jump onto my link in the bio. That was it. It was
Got it.
just
Okay.
simple.
Okay.
No
Yeah.
paid ads, no nothing like that.
Sure.
Um, and yeah, so that was April of 2017, right after the CrossFit Open had wrapped up.
Okay.
And I think like in that first launch, I think I forget the numbers and how it shook out during the week, but by the end of the week, we had 300 people sign up.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was
I'm
like,
sure, right? I've never done that, but I can imagine that seemed like a lot.
it was crazy, right? Because it was $199
Yeah. Okay.
to enroll.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I was like, whoa, like this is, and I didn't, mind you, I didn't look at that and be like, oh, I've got a new business. I was like, whoa, what a lucky thing we just did.
Yeah.
Great. Let's take this as seed money and let's keep bolstering up this other business. And we're going to open up the gym in a couple months and this is going to be awesome.
Yeah. Right.
So, anyhow, that was the beginning of what became, functional bodybuilding online training programs, which now to today looks very different, but 4 or 5 years of doing this,
Yeah.
we have that has been, if I look back and it's like, okay, where did all the revenue come from for the whole business, Revival Strength? The online training programs has definitely been the big majority of it for
Okay.
sure.
And
And
so, and
and that started as like, I'm not interested. Like,
I was gonna
I
say,
got
yeah.
pitched and I'm like, nah, no thanks. Like, but it turns out that was actually pretty, an important thing for us.
Right. And can you explain to everyone too, just like, so how does it work today? So that's how it was when you first tried it.
Mhm.
How does your programming work today that you sell?
Yeah. Well, for 2.5, almost 3 years, that's how it worked.
Okay. And how did it change each 12-week period? Was it like you're
Yeah.
totally evolving the, like, what was justifying someone paying it multiple like
Sure.
quarters
Yeah.
in a
So we
row?
had it was called Awaken Training Series,
Okay.
because you were going to awaken to a new way of training.
Yeah.
All right. This
Love
is
it.
before the woke movement had really like grabbed hold of, culture.
Sure.
And
Okay.
so I was using awaken and woke in my own fitness context. Unbeknownst to me, this was becoming like,
You were ahead of your
the,
time.
well, I think it was concurrently happening. And
Sure. Sure.
somebody mentioned it to me later on, like in some social media thing I was doing I didn't realize that Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movement
Yeah.
were using that.
Right. Right.
Um,
Right.
and man, I felt like I was, I was embarrassed. I was like, oh my gosh, like I had, how ignorant of me, but
It's
it was
tough
an
though. It's
honest,
like, how do you know what words are gonna turn into
yeah,
something
I didn't
broader, you
know.
know?
I didn't know. Anyhow, so Awaken Training Series had ATS 1.0, which then turned into 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. So I
Oh,
made
okay.
4 series that spanned a full year. And then I stopped and I said,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
that's it. It's a year. And we got a lot of people into those 4. And then,
And you always say feel good, but I also get a lot of people that say they look at the people who have done yours and people have like complete body transformations too. So would you say like a full year of this where most people seeing like feeling better and looking a lot better?
yeah, the tagline is look good, move well.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
were definitely kind of like, hey, this is about body composition change. It's also about moving better. It's about feeling better. If you just prioritize trying to be the fastest and the strongest, you don't optimize your body composition. You don't optimize how you feel.
Right.
So we were like, well, let's downplay how you're not going to be the best in the world. We're not here to make CrossFit champions. We're
Sure.
here to make people that are good and look good and feel good along the way. So we did the ATS thing for a year, and then I stopped writing new ones and just let new people come in, new people come in. And then, yeah, maybe at the 2-year mark, I decided, okay, I want to refresh these programs. And so I kind of refreshed all of them and re-released them. So it was like a 3-year period where ATS was just sort of in its, we were just getting, we're continuing to reach new people because we still hadn't, you know, exhausted our audience, and our our audience was growing on social media. We were getting a lot of new people there. Our email list was growing. So that was a few years. And then after maybe 2 years, there became aspects of the training
Okay.
that I really felt like this stands apart from, the training system itself. This is like a unique subset of functional bodybuilding, and I'm going to write an ebook and make that available to somebody.
Oh,
So if
okay.
they want to they want to get functional bodybuilding warm-ups, they can go buy them right here. If they want to do the functional bodybuilding aerobic progressions, they can buy it here.
Got it.
And so we started to play around with the concept of releasing ebooks that were not the 12-week program that, is building you. It was more like, here's a one-off 6-week or 4-week or 8-week thing you can try, or just like a collection of workouts. And those were, in some cases, those were pretty successful. And they just added like another layer of, kind of like, because the ATS was only available every 12 weeks, this was a way that people could get into our system in an evergreen kind of fashion. So these products were
Right.
available
Okay.
all the time. So we had the registrations, we had evergreen, we had personal coaching that was still growing. And once and then in, I guess it was 2020, late 2019, 2020, we launched a new training program called Functional Body Composition, which was an ebook format. And
Okay.
this was now ATS. I considered like my main functional bodybuilding methodology. Functional Body Composition, this new ebook, was kind of my second core methodology. And it really was successful. I mean, for a year of that ebook, it was extremely successful, especially to cold audience members, people that didn't know who we were, really hadn't seen much of us. They just resonated with this concept of like, oh, it's bodybuilding with functional training. It's this way for me to change my body composition. So that became like, it started to wake me up to this idea that, hey, you know what? Functional bodybuilding is something that people want to connect with, both from like a CrossFit side of the spectrum and from the bodybuilding side of the spectrum. Like there's really a way to use this method and this brand to sort of bridge this gap. And then the pandemic hit, and it was like, whoa, everything
Yeah.
changed. Gyms are closed. These quarterly ATS things are a total flop. They're not working because
Because
people are not, they
most
don't
people
have
couldn't do this
access.
stuff at home, right? Yeah.
Yep. We had to pivot. And I was like, I had been wanting to for quite some time to get out of the, I guess it's like kind of turbulent, chaotic, nature of this. Like every quarter we do this big volatile spike of sales. And if it's not successful, then it creates a tremendous amount of stress. And
Oh, yeah. Sure. Makes sense.
it was super successful for a period of time until it started to, until we started to exhaust our audience a little bit. And then it was like, oh man, this feels really hard.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
the idea of how do we, gosh, wouldn't it be great if we could just create like a monthly recurring revenue model where we're delivering a service and a product to people that they are just continually in, and we have a little bit more, understanding of what's going to happen with the business month over month.
Sure. Yeah.
And
Like a normal subscription type thing.
exactly.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we got into the pandemic, and we basically tried to offer as much value to our customers as we could. We created an online, a free month of minimalist functional bodybuilding training
Nice.
for your home.
Yeah.
We got, I think, 1,200 or 1,500 people to sign up for that right
Wow.
away.
That's
But it was
awesome.
free.
I
They
mean, it's
weren't,
free. Sure.
they
Yeah.
had to put their credit card in. So after a
Right.
month, they would get billed. But it was like, I don't know how many people are going to stay. And maybe we're going to be out of lockdown by then, and people are going to just be able to jump right back into what they were doing before.
Right.
But as we know, that didn't happen. So that
Yeah.
then turned into a subscription model, which, we didn't get all of those people to convert into paying customers, but a decent number did. And then months go by and that grows a little bit. And then some gyms started to open up last fall. So we released the full equipment version of that. So
Okay.
now it's like
Yeah.
we have this place where people are kind of coming and that got us a boost in subscriptions. And then a few months later, we released the body composition track, of that program. So we have a subscription now that essentially embodies all of the methods that I have really seen over the last 4 years within functional bodybuilding to resonate with the audience. So the subscription is called Persist. Functional Bodybuilding Persist is our subscription now.
Okay.
And
And that's like the main one that people are
that's the
going
main
to.
thing that we're doing next to individual coaching.
Okay.
And we also have some ebooks that we still sell.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people can still buy the ebooks. If you don't want to subscribe and you want to just try something out, then the ebooks are available. And that's where the business is at today. So,
Nice.
and
I mean,
and
you guys are
all of
smart.
our,
You pivoted probably quicker than a lot of people did. You know what I mean? I mean, that's a huge change and a huge move. And,
yeah,
I
it
think that
seems,
was what was needed.
you're right. In the process, it just seemed like, what can we do today that's going to, you know, help, help our, give value to our audience, like
Right.
really make them feel like, hey, we're here to support their continued functional bodybuilding journey.
Right.
And so none of it, I think the one take home from the whole process is that at no point did we really ever have like, oh, we're going to do this thing and let's strategize how we're going to make it happen. It was more like, how do we just do something today that's worthwhile
Yeah. Right.
and make it
Right.
good and then sort of see what sticks.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. So, and you think the subscription model, is that something that you think will stick around for a long time?
I mean, at this, I'm hesitant to say anything's going to stick around for a long time.
Sure.
I know
Sure.
that that's where we're putting a lot of our energy right now, because so far it's proving to be very, um, it's an effective model, and the people are getting a ton of value from it. And to
Okay.
me, that's just a win-win-win. It's like that's
Yeah.
working for our business, it's working for the customer, and I literally feel like, God, we haven't even scratched the surface of how we can continue to deliver. And I always wanted, this is something that's important to me. It's like with ATS, that program was like, I don't want to say it was stagnant, but it wasn't an evolving thing. It was like, it was a program, I sold it, and then we just helped people execute well, and then we sold it again, and we sold it again, right?
Right. Right. Right.
I didn't have a platform to be evolving in like a weekly basis with people,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
interact in a way like that. And that, because I'm a coach, like I'm a good programmer. I hate thinking of myself like that, but my programs have worked for a lot of people.
Right.
And so and they're just programs. Like, I'm not coaching you. Here's your program, and people are having success. So I've had a successful programming career so far,
Yeah. Right.
but I also know, and I feel deeply that I'm a better coach than I am a programmer. If I can
Interesting. Okay.
interact with you, if we can actually have a conversation and a dialogue, if I have a chance to educate you, if I have a chance to get feedback from you and then help upgrade the programs as a result of it, I'm way better than I am at just writing a program. And so how do I create an environment where I can coach people virtually to the masses? And that was more of like, okay, a subscription model where we have people tuning in every week to
Yeah.
get something new. We have a heck of a media setup where I can actually, if I decide today I'm going to the gym and I want to film these three things with, you know, and I want them to go onto these platforms and I want to create this YouTube content, I can do it. And
Yeah.
then that is like, just, it feeds out to everybody. Then that to me is like, okay, I got a real chance to go onto the forum, see what questions people are asking, go make a video, distribute it, and use that not only to support our current customers, but then also for marketing to get people in to say, hey, look, oh wow, he's teaching all this, all this stuff about kettlebells and kettlebell grips, and oh, he's got great kettlebell stuff on his YouTube. Oh, I want to check out his programs. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so this is feeling really aligned for
No,
sure.
it seems awesome too. Cause I mean, to your point, I think the evolving, just kind of like the evolving programming ever, trying to get better and better. I
Yeah,
feel like that's becoming a really popular thing. Like I've done Pat Sherwood's stuff for a little while.
cool.
It's kind of similar. I mean, very different, but like, as far as like, it's like every 2 weeks, there's something he's like using the data to try to build stuff going forward. And then I've
Yeah,
tried other ones in the past where it's like a little more, probably like your old awakening stuff where you're, I always ran into the issue of you pay the money and maybe it worked and then you're like, okay, do I do it again? Is it going to be different?
mhm,
Is it going to be better? Like what I mean? I would think from a consumer perspective that
yeah,
like the tough, like each quarter you're making a big decision on whether you want
yeah,
to keep going or switch or whatever. But a subscription, it's like it's like constantly evolving, it's constantly changing.
yeah, yeah.
So for people who, have never done Persist or don't know anything about it, like how much does it cost? How can they sign up for it? Because I think from this episode, this is a great episode around just like what you're doing now. And I think
Yeah.
people are definitely going to want to check it out.
Yeah. Well, Persist is it's now a 2-week free trial. So you can go and explore the training tracks that we have for 2 weeks. We've got a minimalist track still,
Oh, awesome.
which means there is body weight variations for the entire week. Um, if you have a couple dumbbells, if you got a jump rope, those add to the minimalist track, but they're not essential.
Okay.
We've got a full equipment training track, which would be most similar to like what we did with Awaken Training Series. And then we've got a body composition track, which is again requires more full equipment scenario, gym scenario. A lot of people doing this at home with a barbell and some of the basic stuff that they have. It's a little bit more focused on aesthetics and hypertrophy and changing body composition. And it's $39 a month to be part of the Persist subscription. Um, with our new website that's going to launch here in a couple weeks, we'll have
Nice.
a 3-month prepay option or a annual prepay option, which is going to get you a discount. It'll
Nice.
make that cheaper, but
Okay.
those aren't available yet. And cancel anytime, sort of thing. And they can go to revival-strength.com to check out our programs. It's featured on the homepage, so it'd be easy to see. And it's really, one of the things that I know about functional bodybuilding is that it's for everybody. Everybody can do it, but it is kind of the Persist program, the online programs are a little more geared towards somebody who's got good training, decent amount of training background. They've
Okay.
done they've done some stuff, especially like the CrossFitter that's done CrossFit before.
Yeah.
Um, it's not you're going to come in and there's some training concepts that you'll need to
Yeah.
um,
You can't just like get off the couch and probably do
yeah,
this. Yeah. Right.
that's something that I'm going to start to look at in the coming year to two is what does it look like for somebody who's very new to training to get into functional bodybuilding? And what does that arc look like to get you ready for the Persist program?
Got
And
it.
I think we have some
That's
great
awesome.
principles that could help that group of people. It just isn't where we're at today.
Yeah.
So, if you like training, if you've got some background, I mean, we get people that have you know, done Globo Gym stuff. They've
Yeah.
never done functional training and they do great, right? It's just a matter of, you wanting to learn it. And I think it really resonates with that group. It also resonates with the CrossFitter. It resonates with the burnt out people that are looking to, feel better. And definitely if you just want to like get on a structured hypertrophy body composition training program to look better. I got friends from like high school that never got too into training, but they jumped on my body composition program and they're loving it. And they're just like, this is it. This is what I need. Like,
That's awesome. Yeah.
they're in their 30s, 40s working. They're like, this gets me everything I wanted.
And what would you say is the biggest difference? So that's funny you say that because I've kind of been that person who have done like the Globo Gym thing. A lot of my friends have been there, and then honestly, since I joined RX Bar in 2017, I've definitely been trying. I've been doing more CrossFit in general, but I have a garage set up. What's like the biggest difference between like the persist and the body composition tracks? Like, what's the difference in what they're trying to accomplish?
Yeah. So we call it Persist Classic, and that's like, I kind of described it as somebody who looks at fitness and their performance in fitness through the lens of like, you know, some of the old CrossFit metrics. Like they want to get stronger, they want to move faster, they want to do some of the more complicated, complex movements. They like to do metcons. Like that's what it was designed around. It was like that was the model that I built post competitive CrossFit, where I was like, I want to kind of bring a little bit of bodybuilding into that type of training.
Love it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So the body comp track is really more like what how do we lift weights to change our bodies? Because people are assume that like, hey, you got to go out and do metcons till you're, puking your guts out to like get a six pack. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, we show people how to like basically do weight training in a very smart way to look better. So, time under tension, tempo sets of weight training, supersets, things like that. So it's more resistance training focused with a smaller component of metconning in there.
Okay.
But what that looks like for people is like it's just a bit more simple to follow. It's more traditional progressions from week to week, overload progressions that work. They work
Yeah.
great. And they use more of the movements that people have come to see as common on my page for the last several years.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Love it. Well, thanks, Marcus. I appreciate it. I think people are going to love this episode, and I'm
That's
excited.
awesome.
I'm definitely going to go check these both out because this sounds exactly what I'm looking for, and I know a lot of the
Awesome.
audience that I talk to will say the same thing. So that's awesome. And thanks for all the background. I mean, it's exciting to hear all the different things that you've done. You've done a lot of different business endeavors and a lot of different ways of making money outside of CrossFit. Are you still involved at all with the supplement brand at all?
We closed the supplement brand down the beginning of 2020. So
Okay. Oh, there you go.
yeah, we and that's primarily because the other two people that were involved got into other businesses, and so we had three owners that all had separate things that we were doing. It was like,
Sure.
come on,
Too much.
let's close it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. No, that's great. The last question, I know I asked you this last time, but would love to ask you again. Is there any, since we chatted last time, any new sources of knowledge, book, podcast, anything that you'd like to share with the audience that you've, read or heard lately?
Yeah, and this is just one of the more recent ones, but have you heard of do you know Cal Newport? That I'm going to see if I can
That
pull up
name
the
sounds
name.
super familiar. I don't think I've
Yeah,
read anything, but I know that name.
yeah, Cal Newport, and the book's name is, just a moment, A World Without Email.
Oh, I like this.
Definitely go check it out.
A
A
world
World
without
Without
email.
Email. And the
Are you audiobooking it?
yeah, reimagining work in an age of communication overload.
Love it.
Super quality read or
Yeah.
listen.
Okay. I'll add that one to the show notes. Very good. Well,
All
Marcus,
right,
thank
James.
you so much, man. I appreciate the
My
time.
pleasure. Thank you again for having me. And I love what you're doing, man.
Thanks. I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate that. And I'll make sure all that stuff you mentions in the show notes when it's up and live. I'll let you know.
Okay. All
Awesome,
right.
man. Marcus, we'll have a great rest of your day and let's chat soon.
Okay. Take care, Shane.
Awesome. See you, man.